You are born on Viltrum. Congratulations! You have won the genetic lottery of the known universe. You are a member of the most physically dominant species ever to exist. You will grow to possess strength that can crack a planet's crust. You will be able to fly faster than most civilizations' fastest aircraft. You will heal from wounds that would kill anything else alive in seconds. You will be effectively immortal, aging so slowly that 1,000 years from now you will look more or less exactly as you do today. You are, on paper, a god. Here is what the paper leaves out. Being born a Viltrumite is not the same thing as having a good life. It is not the same thing as being happy. It is not the same thing as being free. The power is real. Everything that comes with the power is also real, and almost none of it is what you would have chosen if anyone had thought to ask you. Nobody asked you. Nobody asks Viltrumites anything. That is the first thing you need to understand about this civilization. You were not born into a society. You were born into a machine. The machine has a purpose. The purpose is not you. Let's talk about what it actually means to grow up here. Problem 1. Your childhood is a gauntlet designed to break you. You are born stronger than a human adult. This sounds like an advantage until you understand what it means for how you are treated. Viltrumite children are not raised, they are processed. The distinction matters. Raising implies care, patience, the gradual investment of love and knowledge into a developing person. Processing implies input, testing, output. The Viltrumite approach to childhood is the latter. Your parents, if both are present, which is not guaranteed, which we will get to, understand that the civilization's expectation is not that you be nurtured, it is that you be hardened, quickly, because the civilization is watching, and the civilization has opinions about softness. From the moment you can walk, you are being evaluated, not assessed in the gentle developmental sense of a pediatrician checking milestones, evaluated in the pass-fail sense of a machine determining whether a component meets specification. Are you developing your strength on the correct timeline? Is your pain tolerance within acceptable parameters? Are you displaying the appropriate emotional restraint, which is to say, are you displaying any emotional vulnerability at all? Because emotional vulnerability in a Viltrumite child is not considered a developmental phase to be supported, it is considered a warning sign to be corrected. The training begins before most species' children have stopped needing to be carried. Physical conditioning that would hospitalize a human adult is Tuesday for a Viltrumite 7-year-old. You are taught to absorb pain not by being shielded from it, but by being subjected to it systematically until your relationship with it changes, until pain becomes information rather than suffering, until your nervous system stops sending the signal that says stop and starts sending the signal that says noted.
This works physiologically. The Viltrumite body responds to conditioning in ways no other biology can match. The adaptation is real, and it is permanent. And when you are an adult warrior, you will be grateful for it in the narrow, tactical sense of being harder to kill. What it costs you is something you will not have a word for until much later, if ever. The thing it costs you is the experience of being young in a way that is safe. The knowledge, installed before you are old enough to question it, that the world does not adjust itself to accommodate your development, that you are the one who adjusts, that your feelings about this adjustment are irrelevant to the process, that the process does not care whether you are ready. You are never ready. You are just expected to be ready. That is not the same thing. But nobody on Viltrum will ever explain the difference to you. Problem 2. The Empire owns you before you own yourself. There is a word Viltrumites use, duty. It is a word used by every civilization that has ever found a way to require sacrifice from people who did not individually choose to sacrifice. On Viltrum, duty is not a value you develop. It is a value you are born into, the way you are born into a gravity field. It is simply the condition of the environment you exist in, and the idea that you might not inhabit it is not considered a coherent thought. The empire is not a government in the way most civilizations use that word. It is not a social contract. It is not an agreement between citizens and institutions about how power will be distributed and what obligations flow in both directions. The Viltrumite Empire is an organizing principle that runs in one direction. You serve it. It does not serve you. The question of what it owes you in return for your service is a question that has no official answer because it has never been officially asked. By the time you reach adulthood, you will have been assigned a function, not chosen, assigned. The empire looks at what you are and determines how you can best be used. If you are among the strongest and most capable, you will likely be deployed as a warrior, a conqueror, an enforcer of Viltrum's expansion across the galaxy. If you are less extraordinary by Viltrumite standards, which still means you are extraordinary by any other species standards, you will serve in whatever capacity the empire requires. The question is not, what do you want to do with your immortal life? The question is, what does the empire need you to do with it? This is not framed as restriction, it is framed as honor. The empire has given you existence, has shaped you through its training and its culture and its expectations, and now it requires that existence back in the form of service. This is presented as the natural and correct order of things. The alternative, a Viltrumite who asks, "Why should I serve?" who questions the premise of the arrangement, is not tolerated. Not punished, exactly. Punishment implies that the behavior is recognized as a possible choice that has been made incorrectly. The response to a Viltrumite who genuinely refuses the empire's claim on them is closer to the response to a malfunctioning component. You are not treated as wrong, you are treated as broken. And here is the part that is hardest to hold in your head. The conditioning is so complete, so early, so total, that most Viltrumites never experience the refusal as a genuine option. The empire does not need to forcibly conscript you, because the idea of not serving has been removed from the architecture of your thinking before you are old enough to build it in the first place. You serve because you cannot fully imagine not serving. This is the most efficient form of control ever devised. It requires no visible chains.
Problem 3. The Great Purge happened, and you were living in its aftermath. Here is a piece of Viltrumite history they teach in the way that civilizations teach their most uncomfortable truths, which is to say, accurately but without dwelling, accurately but framed as necessary, accurately but in a tone that strongly implies the correct response is pride rather than horror. Viltrum nearly destroyed itself. Not from external attack, not from natural catastrophe, from an internal decision made at the highest level of the civilization about who deserved to continue existing. The Viltrumite population at its peak was millions, a thriving species on a powerful world, developing the empire that would eventually reach across galaxies. And then the leadership, the emperor and the ruling warrior class, looked at the population and made a calculation. The calculation was this: not all Viltrumites are equal. Some are stronger, faster, more capable, more suited to the civilization's direction. Some are not. The ones who are not are consuming resources and producing children who might also not be. The civilization would be more powerful, the calculation went, if it were composed entirely of its strongest members, rather than diluted by its weaker ones. So they killed half their own people. They did not exile them, they did not relocate them. The Viltrumite leadership systematically eliminated approximately half of the Viltrumite population on the basis of not meeting the standard.
The Great Purge was not a war. It was an administrative decision executed with the efficiency of a species that can, in fact, kill its own kind efficiently when it decides to. What was left was a civilization of the strongest, exactly as intended, and approximately a few thousand Viltrumites where there had been millions. The empire recovered. The remaining Viltrumites were indeed individually extraordinary. The expansion accelerated. By most metrics, the purge achieved its stated objectives. Now you are born into this, and here is what that means practically. You are born into a species with a demonstrated willingness to kill its own members for falling short of a standard. The standard is not published. It is not fixed. It is determined by whoever holds power and what they have decided the civilization needs to be. The purge is history, but it is also a standing proof of concept. It happened once. Nothing structural has changed to make it impossible for it to happen again. Every Viltrumite alive knows this. None of them say it directly. All of them live with the knowledge encoded into the way they carry themselves, the way they perform strength, the way they are very careful never to be seen as the weakest person in the room. You are not afraid of dying in battle. Dying in battle is honorable. Dying in battle is what Viltrumites are supposed to do. You are afraid of being deemed insufficient. That fear does not have a name in the Viltrumite language. The language was built by the people who designed the purge, and they did not include a word for being afraid of your own civilization. But the fear is there. It shapes everything. It has shaped everything for generations. Welcome to the aftermath.
Problem 4. You will watch everyone you love age and die, while you do not. You are effectively immortal. Let's talk about what that actually means across time. If you take a Viltrumite partner, another Viltrumite, someone who shares your biology and your timeline, you have solved the immediate problem of losing them to age. You have not solved the problem of losing them to war, to conquest, to the attrition of an empire that continuously puts its best warriors in the most dangerous places. Viltrumites are hard to kill. They are not impossible to kill. And the empire sends them into situations where things capable of killing them exist routinely as a matter of policy. But suppose your partner survives. Suppose your children survive. The children grow slowly by Viltrumite standards and vanishingly slowly by any other species standards. A Viltrumite child's development takes decades to complete. You will watch your children grow across a timeline that most civilizations spend building and collapsing entire dynasties. And then they will be adults, and they will be assigned to the empire, and the empire will send them where it needs them, and the distance between a Viltrumite parent and a Viltrumite child deployed across the galaxy is a distance that has no solution. Here is the specific loneliness of the immortal conqueror that the Viltrumite cultural mythology does not address. You will be sent to other worlds. This is the Empire's primary use of its warriors, deploying them to civilizations marked for conquest, where a single Viltrumite can, over decades or centuries, infiltrate, integrate, and eventually deliver an entire planet to the Empire. The timescale of this assignment is longer than most species' entire recorded histories. You will arrive on a world. You will live among its people. You will, because you are capable of it, because you are designed for it, because you are a person and persons form attachments regardless of what the Empire would prefer. You will come to know these people, some of them, specific ones. You will watch them live their brief, brilliant lives, and you will watch them die. And then you will watch their children live and die, and their children's children. And all of this while you do not age and do not die, and are simply still there, outlasting everything, accumulating loss at a rate that has no upper limit, because there is no end to how long you will exist, and therefore no end to how many people you will outlast. The Viltrumite psychological framework for this is do not form attachments. The species that the Empire sends you to conquer are lesser. They are temporary. They are means to an end. Do not lose perspective. This framework is easier to articulate than to inhabit. Some Viltrumites manage it. They develop the specific coldness of someone who has learned to relate to temporary things temporarily. They move through civilizations the way a river moves through landscapes, present, powerful, leaving marks, never belonging to what they pass through. Some do not manage it, and the ones who do not manage it carry something that has no official Viltrumite name because the civilization does not officially acknowledge that it exists. Grief. The specific, endless grief of a being who cannot stop loving things that will not survive to love them back across the full length of their existence. 1,000 years from now, you will still be here. Almost nothing you love right now will be. Problem 5. The Viltrumite Civil War nearly erased everything and left scars that have not healed. The Great Purge was not the only time Viltrumites tried to destroy each other. The Civil War came later, after the Purge had already reduced the population to thousands, and it reduced it further. Viltrumites fighting Viltrumites, which means the most destructive conflict physically possible, because nothing else on the scale of a Viltrumite warrior exists to cause this kind of damage, which means the damage is almost incomprehensible. Battles between Viltrumites do not look like battles. They look like geological events. They register as changes in local physics. The Civil War happened because power does not distribute itself evenly among equals, and Viltrumites are not equals. They are a hierarchy disguised as a meritocracy, and the disguise eventually failed. They always accumulate authority. The authority eventually concentrates. Concentration creates resentment. Resentment in a species this powerful eventually expresses itself in ways that level entire regions. What was left after the Civil War was a species on the edge of extinction, not metaphorically, numerically. The population had been reduced from the millions of pre-purge Viltrum to a number you could fit in a large building. The most powerful species in the galaxy nearly ceased to exist, not because of anything the galaxy did to it, but because of what it did to itself. You are born into this. The population you are born into is the residue of two self-inflicted catastrophes. Every Viltrumite alive is a descendant, direct or cultural, of the survivors of a species that twice nearly ended itself and would choose it again if the calculus were the same. The instability that produced the Purge and the Civil War has not been resolved. It has been managed, suppressed, held in a specific configuration by whoever holds enough power at this moment to hold it. There is no Viltrumite therapy. There is no institutional processing of what the Civil War meant, or what the Purge meant, or what it does to a civilization's collective psychology to know that it chose to nearly end itself twice and would choose it again if the calculus were the same. There is no truth and reconciliation. There is the Empire still expanding, still requiring service, still measuring everyone against the standard that produced the Purge in the first place. The wounds are not healed. They're just not discussed. You carry them anyway. Every Viltrumite does. The inheritance of a species that knows on a cellular level that its own strongest members are the most dangerous things to it.
Problem 6. Your biology makes you rare, and your rarity is a weapon used against you. Here is a biological fact about Viltrumites that the Empire understands as a strategic reality and that you experience as a personal trap. Viltrumites reproduce slowly, extremely slowly. The near-immortal lifespan and the extraordinary physical constitution come with a reproductive rate that, by most species standards, barely qualifies as replacing the existing population. Viltrumite births are rare. A Viltrumite pregnancy is a significant event, not a routine one. The population, already decimated by 2 internal catastrophes, grows at a pace that makes even geological processes seem impatient. The Empire knows this. The Empire's response to this biological reality is the thing that should concern you. Because Viltrumite DNA is extraordinarily dominant, the Empire has discovered that a Viltrumite who mates with a member of another species produces children who inherit the Viltrumite capabilities at a surprisingly high rate. These half-Viltrumite children are not identical to full-blooded Viltrumites. They have the strength, the healing, the near immortality, but they also have the emotional architecture of their other parent species, which tends to make them more complex and less manageable than pure Viltrumites. The Empire does not consider this a reason to avoid the strategy. It considers it a complication to be managed. What this means for you is the following. The Empire has an interest in your reproduction that extends beyond your personal choices. Your genetic material is a resource. Your children are a resource. The decision about where you go, who you encounter, what civilizations you spend your centuries among, these decisions are made partly with an eye toward the expansion of Viltrumite genetic presence across the galaxy. You are not just a warrior. You are, in the Empire's calculus, a vector, a mechanism for spreading Viltrumite biology into populations where it will take root and eventually serve the Empire's purposes. This is not a relationship between a government and a citizen. This is a relationship between an institution and a breeding program that has been given the courtesy of not being called a breeding program. Any attachment you form on a conquered world is therefore complicated by the question of whether the Empire anticipated it, whether it serves the Empire's purposes, whether it is being permitted or managed from above. The warmth you might feel for a life you have built somewhere, for people who know you, for someone who has seen you without the armor of Viltrumite performance, all of it exists inside a structure that the Empire designed and that serves the Empire's ends even when you are not thinking about the Empire at all. Perhaps especially then.
Problem 7. Weakness is not permitted, so you can never actually rest. There is a version of strength that is a gift, the kind that allows you to do more, endure more, protect the people you love. There is another version of strength that is a cage, the kind that is required of you continuously, that admits no interruption, that has no off switch, that evaluates every moment for evidence of its presence. Viltrumite strength is the second kind. You are not permitted to be tired in any way that matters. Not physically, the body recovers fast enough that physical fatigue is genuinely brief. But the categories of tiredness that most species recognize as the actual problem, the exhaustion of sustained vigilance, the weight of continuous performance, the specific depletion of a person who has been required to be formidable every day for a very long time, these are not recognized in the Viltrumite framework as real problems. They are recognized as weakness. And weakness is the thing the entire civilization has organized itself, twice catastrophically, to eliminate. So you do not rest, not in the way that actually helps. You recover physically, yes, but the performance of Viltrumite identity, the continuous projection of strength, capability, readiness, the specific bearing of a being that cannot be threatened, cannot be diminished, cannot be seen to waver, that performance does not rest. It cannot rest because the moment it rests is the moment someone notices, and the moment someone notices is the moment the evaluation restarts. And the evaluation restarts from the position of the purge, which is anything insufficient is a problem to be solved. This produces a specific psychological condition in Viltrumites that has no official name because naming it would require acknowledging it exists. It is something like chronic hypervigilance in the social domain, the continuous monitoring of whether you are projecting the right image, the automatic scanning of every interaction for evidence that someone is assessing you and finding you wanting.
The inability to experience a genuine moment of vulnerability, not because you are ashamed of vulnerability in the abstract, but because the system around you has made vulnerability an existential risk for so many generations that the body treats it as a threat signal regardless of the actual circumstances. You are the most powerful being in any room you enter. You are never safe enough to stop performing. These two things are not supposed to be compatible. In Viltrum, they are not only compatible, they are standard. Problem 8. The empire is built on a lie you were raised to never question. The Viltrumite Empire presents itself as the pinnacle of what a civilization can become. Strength, order, expansion, the spread of Viltrumite dominance as a universal good. The conquered worlds are not victims, this is the framing, they are beneficiaries. The stability the empire brings, the end of local conflicts, the incorporation into a larger order. This is what conquest is. This is what it is for. You were raised in this framing. It is not a framing you chose. It was installed in you the way the pain tolerance was installed, early, systematically, before you had the conceptual tools to evaluate it. The framework through which you understand the empire's work is the empire's framework, and the circularity of this is not obvious from inside it.
Here is what the framework conceals. The civilizations being conquered did not ask to be conquered. The stability the empire imposes is the stability of subjugation, the absence of conflict that comes when one party to a potential conflict is so comprehensively outmatched that resistance is not a realistic option. The end of local conflicts is the end of local self-determination. The species that live under Viltrumite dominion are not partners in an empire, they are contents of one. Their languages, their cultures, their own sense of what they are and where they came from and what they might become, all of this continues only to the extent that it does not interfere with what the empire needs them to produce. Some Viltrumites encounter this reality gradually over centuries of deployment on worlds where the people are too specific, too human in the broadest sense, too genuinely themselves for the abstraction of necessary conquest to hold indefinitely. The person you were sent to pacify turns out to have a name. The name turns out to belong to a person. The person turns out to have a family. The family turns out to want things, unremarkable things, ordinary things, the things all living things want, and the empire's plan for those things is not compatible with the wanting. The moment you fully see this, you have a problem that the Viltrumite framework cannot help you solve, because the framework was not designed to help you live with this knowledge. It was designed to prevent you from acquiring it. And once you have it, you are living inside a civilization that requires you to act as though you don't. Most Viltrumites manage this the way most people manage most things that cannot be resolved, by not looking directly at it, by maintaining the functional performance of the framework while allowing the knowledge to exist somewhere peripheral, unintegrated, carried without being examined. A very few cannot manage this. The ones who cannot manage this become the most dangerous Viltrumites in the empire's history, not because they are weak, because they are, finally, honest. The empire does not celebrate this quality. What you are left with. You are standing on a world that is not Viltrum. You have been here for 60 years. The people who were alive when you arrived are mostly dead now. Their children are old. Their grandchildren think of you as a fixture of the place, an unexplained permanence, someone who was already here when the story started. You are physically unchanged. The gray hasn't come. The slowness hasn't come. You are exactly what you were 60 years ago, except that you are 60 years heavier in the way that has nothing to do with the body. You could fly to the edge of the planet's atmosphere in 3 minutes. You could lift the largest thing they have built with one hand. You could end this world, probably, if you worked at it long enough. And this is not a comforting thought to have access to. The knowledge of your own capacity for ending things, sitting there in the architecture of your awareness. Not a desire, just a fact. The way the knowledge of a loaded weapon in a drawer is just a fact that you are always slightly aware of. The Empire has sent orders, a new assignment, a new world. You have been here long enough, the Empire's assessment goes, and there is work to do elsewhere. You look at what you have here, the people who know you, the specific quality of the light in the evening, the things you have learned about how it feels to be a person in a place rather than a function in an empire. The Empire does not ask whether you want to go. The Empire never asks. That was always the deal, installed before you were old enough to know deals were being made. You are a Viltrumite. You are the strongest thing for 10,000 light years in any direction. You have been given a gift that no other species in the galaxy possesses, and every civilization you have ever encountered would trade almost anything to have. You are not sure it was a gift. You go where you are sent. You do what you were made to do. Somewhere, 1,000 years from now, you will still be doing it. The light changes. You take off. No one on this world knows where you are going. You are not entirely sure you do either.